I'm delighted to welcome today Joyce Hardi from the Reignited Woman up in Glasgow. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So I can't even say it, the Reignited Woman. Tell us about that. What is it?
It's me.
Right. Okay.
I am the Reignited Woman. I worked in corporate all my life, and then I got sick and parted company with my employers. I went through a particularly bad time when, you know, just one of those years when everything goes wrong that can possibly go wrong, just everything. And I got into a pretty dark place, and just, it was awful. So I decided, well, I would have one too many glasses of wine, you know, one glass a night, 2 glasses a night, and it got out of hand. But I knew it was getting out of hand. So I thought I need to do something about this. So I went looking for support. Couldn't find anybody round about my age. Everyone was much younger, was just coming from a totally different place in life than I was. So I, with the help of an acquaintance at the time, it wasn't somebody I knew particularly well, actually got myself out of it and got myself into a totally new life, doing totally different things. I mean, that was when I set up the coaching business. And I now volunteer. I'm a non-exec on a couple of boards. Life's just taken off. I travel on a regular basis, used to travel on a regular basis. Husband works abroad, daughters in London. So I would just spend my time between Glasgow, London and Dubai, which, having been working for the same employer for 23 years, was a bit of a culture shock. But actually, hindsight says it was the best thing that ever happened to me, was getting sick. So because I am the Reignited Woman, that's what I want to do for other people.
Right. You mentioned the youngsters that are out there doing stuff that's different to people of say over 50, being kind to us. There's a different mindset, isn't there, between what young people in business need, particularly women, what they're after, what their goals are, what their needs are, versus people who are older. So what's your age group that you're particularly helping, Joyce?
40 to 60 is the average age of my clients. They tend to have got to that point in life when either the kids are leaving home, or they're hitting menopause, or, you know, they're just getting to the stage where they think, is this it? Is this all there is to life? And I think, you know, you mentioned the young ones, and the young ones tend not to stay in jobs long term. They use each job as a stepping stone to move on, where a lot of our generation, you know, you got a job and you'd be there for 10, 20, 30 years, sometimes even more. And I think because we just do it, and we're on that hamster wheel, and we just keep going, and we very rarely stop to think about what we should do next. Whereas the youngsters, everyth's an adventure, and they just, you know, my daughter's currently off doing a big adventure. She's studying, but she gave up her job and disappeared off to the Far East for 3 weeks to take part in an adventure. Now, that would never enter my head, you know. So it's just different perspectives on life, and there's probably a happy medium somewhere.
What kind of things do your clients talk to you about? What are their needs?
It can be anything from imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, lacking confidence, believing that they're too old, not computer technical enough to do anything different. They've been accepting of their lot, if you like, till something happens, and it could be a relationship breaking up, you know, 20 years of marriage, and suddenly the woman's left on her own and is still trying to work out what happened. So there's all sorts of things, including mothers dealing with kids going through maybe sexual identity or gender identities, and it's not something that we ever came up against. You know, this new gender identity and all of the different categories that there are and different ways people describe themselves is pretty alien to us. And I've had a couple of women now whose children have come to them and said, you know, I'm not male or female, I'm non-binary or gender fluid or whatever definition they want to put in it. And that's a massive shock for parents to have to work through. So the variety of stuff that I cover is massive, yeah.
Imposter syndrome, that's a real old chestnut that's been around for years and years. And I used to do a lot of work with law firms and accounting firms, well, still do to an extent, but I was always surprised the number of kind of testosterone driven thrusting, you know, courtroom lawyers who also suffered imposter syndrome. It was like they were waiting to be tapped on the shoulder, well, not waiting, but worried they would be tapped on the shoulder. You know, who do you think you are, Billy Bloggs? You know, I remember you smoking behind the bike sheds, you know, and then there you are, who do you think you are, sort of thing. So imposter syndrome covers so many different types of people think, but the bottom line is not good enough, isn't it?
Yeah, the bottom line is that they feel that they're not good enough, so they tend to work longer hours than anybody else. They tend to not get things done quickly enough because they're constantly, they won't release a document till it's absolutely perfect, every I dotted, every T crossed, so they will take long times over it because, like you say, they think they're going to be found out. They think they're going to get that tap in the shoulder, and it all comes down to insecurity and lack of confidence. And it's just a lot of these people are incredibly smart. You know, they're very intelligent. They can hold down really high jobs, but inside they've still got that insecurity that said, don't know that I'm that good.
Yeah. So how do you help them? Where do you recommend people start when they've got this imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough feeling about themselves?
It's about trying to understand why. Now, as a coach, I tend to, you know, this is what the issue is, we're going to move forward as opposed to going back. But with imposter syndrome, go back slightly just to look at all of the positives. You know, if you're a lawyer, you've got the qualifications. You know, you've studied, you've qualified, you've done your training. So it's going back enough to look at the good things and the things that they have achieved, and then working through that to maybe different jobs they've had, the responsibility that they've had, and trying to get them to accept that, you know, that was all positive and that's good, and this is why you're qualified to do what you're doing, and then start and introduce tools and techniques that will then help them on a day-to-day basis to move forward.
What kind of tools and techniques? There's so many different resources available now.
I'm an NLP master practitioner, so I use a lot of NLP techniques. You know, one of the ones I absolutely hate, but the obvious one that everybody knows is the elastic band around your wrist.
Yes.
The ping every time you think of whatever you're not meant to be thinking. So there are things like that. There are exercises that we can do that we can, it's sort of like hypnosis is probably the easiest way of describing it, except it's not, but it's a similar sort of experience that you take people through. So there are different ways of doing it, and it really depends how bad people are. I mean, how deep-rooted that insecurity and lack of confidence is. You know, if you spent your whole life people telling you you're not good enough, despite the fact that you've got all of these qualifications, that's what you believe. It's very difficult to look at what you have done and look at why people should be proud of you and why you should be proud of yourself. Because we tend not to do that. We tend not to have pride in ourselves. And again, that's generational. You know, I was brought up that it wasn't good to boast about yourself.
Yes. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Whereas young people now, they do. They're not shy at telling you what they've been good at and what they've achieved. And, you know, it's back to what I said earlier. If we could take bits of that and put it into us, then it would help people move forward.
Yeah, it's about balance, isn't it? As you said earlier.
It's about balance, and life's so fast-paced at the moment that nobody stops to think. You know, especially if you're in the corporate world and you get up every day and you go to work and you're in that mode. You know, you're not recognizing the pressure that you're under, the stress that you're putting yourself under, until something happens. And with me, that was, I got sick. And with hindsight, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I did not realize how stressed I was, and how much, sorry. I just didn't realize how stressed I was or any of that stuff until it was over. You know, it's just, we do it.
So many people,
train, you know.
like you're saying, you kind of just get up, go through the motions, and that's why a lot of people, when they do have a break, they have a holiday or Christmas leave or something like that, they actually become ill then, because their body is just so relieved at not having to be pushed every day. And that's why I do what I do with my health mentoring, because when we can help people to avoid the illnesses, whether somebody's in crisis, I can help them to reverse it, health crisis, but ideally avoid in the first place. So what you're doing with the people is a kind of similar outcome to me as well, but we approach it from different aspects. I do it from the home testing and laboratory testing and so on to get to the root cause, but with you it's more the emotional support as well, isn't it, which is really absolutely key. All of the people that I've mentored, unless they get their emotions sorted, they can eat the best diet, do the right exercise, whatever it is, but if their mind and the emotions aren't in check, then it's really hard to heal.
Yeah, it's all about mindset, and it's difficult to recognize that unless something happens. You know, COVID, if anything good came out of COVID, it made people stop. It made people think about what is important. It made a lot of people, a lot of women, stop and say, I don't want to go back anymore. You know, I'm on furlough. I'm not going back to that. I worked with a woman who, during COVID, who came to me, and she'd been in the same job for 23 years, and she said she hated it, absolutely hated it. And I thought, why were you there? And she'd taken the job because it suited her when the kids were young, you know, because she could do the school run, all the stuff that you need to do. Kids have up and left home, but she's still in that job that she actually like. But COVID, she was put in furlough, she stopped and she says, I hate it, I'm not going back. And that's when you get into the, but I don't know what else I can do, and but I'm too old, and you know, and that's just another mindset switch that said, no, you're not. You know, age is a number, it's got absolutely nothing else to do with it. And I think it's one of the messages that, being the Reignited Woman, that I tell women. I mean, I started my first business at 54, you know, and if you'd told me that 10, 12 years ago, I would have laughed. But it is just about looking at things differently, and stopping long enough to look at things differently. and being open to new ideas. You know, you will certainly come across this in what you do, is getting people who are open to trying anything new.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because you know, oh, better the devil you know, that's an old chestnut that gets rolled out, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you know, I'm okay as I am. Why would I want to change it? Rather than saying, well, actually, it could be a lot better if you change it.
Yeah.
You know, I as you know, I've got a health condition, and most days I think, yeah, it's fine, but that fine includes a lot of pills. You know, so it is about saying, right, what will you try? And I've tried loads of alternative therapies and all that, because I'm not content to just sit there and be. And that's a lot of things that I work with women to, is to say that life's okay. You know, I'm fine, it's all right, but it should be a lot more than all right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
What's the point of just bumbling along, just going through the motions and not really living? And by the time you do wake up and smell the roses, for some people it's too late, isn't it? Because they've just existed, they haven't actually lived, which is very sad. So you use NLP and coaching techniques and so on. What other resources do you provide? I think you've got a club or hub, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a community, and I actually set this up during COVID, because there was so many women that I was talking to that were, oh, I'd love your help, but you know, we don't know whether we're going to have a job, we don't know, you know, money's tight, all of the things that everybody appreciates. So I set up this community which has a masses of resources in it. There's articles and videos and all sorts of topics from women's health, including the menopause and stuff like that, confidence, imposter syndrome, anxiety, you name it, and you've got resources in there. There's also regular live trainings and webinars, and it's a forum where women of a similar age can talk to other women who are dealing with similar problems. As well as use the resources. And you know, some women just sit there and use the resources and soak it all up and don't get involved, and other women are right in there and they want to know more and they want to talk to other people and they want to go to the trainings, but it's whatever suits them. And there's always, through it all, there's always access to me, so that they can come specifically and get their individual questions answered if they can't find anything resource-wise. And I was talking about it today. It's a bit like going on to Google when you put something in and you never quite get the answer to the question that you're asking. And I've tried to make the resources in there the answers to the type of questions that women ask. So that they are getting the specifics without having to trail through Google and find whatever else is there. And you don't, it's not someplace you need to go every day. Everything in there is all stored under topics. So you could go in once or twice a week and check out your topic and see if there's anything new, or you could browse your news feed every day if you're into that. We all learn differently, so there's different ways of doing it.
So many resources available now to us, online, offline. It's almost like we're being forced to do this digital stuff. We know what happened to sitting down reading a nice good old book, but we have to do what we have to do, don't we?
Absolutely. But the thing, I was networking this morning and we were talking about books and things, and somebody said, I just don't have time to read a book. But equally, and I'm not saying it was the same for that individual because I don't really know, but people will spend 10 minutes scrolling through the feeds on their phones. Now, in that 10 minutes, you could have sat down and read part of a book.
I've started using the Audible, the reading books, so that I've got them playing. So I'm reading books as I'm pottering about doing stuff, and I'm quite happy with that arrangement. But I do like to sit down with the book as well before I go to bed. It's calming.
Yeah, I do. It just lets you unwind, and it's in terms of emotional well-being, it's that changing of activities that helps.
Yes.
So even going from working solid to sitting reading a book or whatever, even just for 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, makes such a big difference before
Yes.
you get up and carry on, or whatever it is you're going to do. Or as you say, they unwind at night rather than taking your phone to bed.
Yeah, so many people don't realise that you should put your phone on airplane mode and switch off all the routers at night in the house, because while we're sleeping, if our body is still, interacting with these EMFs, that's still not going to be a happy place either. So that's why I do it, because I then don't have screen time before bed. I've got the books, and it's calming. Although I do wonder myself, because I read these detective novels, so my mind's actually racing and working out who done it. So maybe I should change my titles. So,
but it's a different type of stress,
yes,
it is different. It's not getting you stressed up, it's just your mind's thinking about it.
Yes, yeah.
It's good. It's great to switch off.
So what tips would you give, Joyce, to somebody who's maybe just woken up and realized that they've been doing the same job for 20 years, married to the same person for maybe 30 years, they don't get on anymore, they've grown apart, they've been told they're in the menopause, the kids have left home. What do they do?
Phone me. No, I think the first step is recognizing that and honestly admitting, like, the relationship's over, the kids have gone, we've nothing in common. Are you going to stay in that relationship just for the sake of it because you don't have the courage to walk away? And the one tip I'd always give to anybody is to do something that scares you every single day. And even acknowledging in your head that maybe the relationship's over or you've had enough of the job, and then taking that step to physically do something about it. And at that stage, there is lots of help available. There's lots of career advice and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of retraining you can do if you're looking for other jobs. But it's about sitting down and saying, what makes me happy? And what would make me happy? And then being brave enough to do something about it. I always offer a free session to everyone before I would start working with anybody anyway, because we just might not get on. There's sometimes you just don't match, and I have people coming to me and I think, no, it wouldn't work. We couldn't work together. So I always have that, but I'm quite happy to do that in terms of pointing people in the right direction. And sometimes that's all they need. I've got a questionnaire which covers each aspect of your life. It's a bit like the wheel of life, where you can mark where you're at and look at the areas of your life that you need to do some work on, and then start it, but don't try and do it all at the one time. So don't walk out in your marriage and give up your job and everything on the same day, unless it's absolutely horrific and you have to. But it's about one step at a time, and one step at a time is a lot less frightening than, right, okay, I've got to change my entire life. So it's about baby steps, because most of us have spent our life doing the total opposite, and we're all comfortable and it's nice, and but stepping out of that comfort zone and taking those first few steps, that's scary. It's scary, but well worth it when you've done it.
Absolutely. I used to be a business transformational change consultant, and I'd go into businesses, and sometimes it would be supporting them to build the business, and sometimes it would be making redundancies. And of all the redundancy projects that included redundancy, every person said to me, basically, thank you for the way the the procedure was carried out, because they've been longing for a long time but didn't know how to make the change from a job that they're miserable at, and you know, stepping out. So there's always a silver lining, isn't there? You sometimes need to look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be difficult to walk away from a steady wage. You know, so redundancy, or like me getting sick, is actually the easy way out, because somebody else has made that decision for you. But it's harder to do it if everything's fine, but you've decided, no, I need to walk away. And that's why everything else needs to stay the same, because you need that comfort zone as you step out in a new direction, one new direction at a time.
It goes back to that balance again, doesn't it? The balance equation. Yeah,
it is. But it is about, sometimes we need to get out of our comfort zone and do stuff that scares us. Because after a few weeks, that becomes the norm, and then you can step out and do something else. It's never about making dramatic changes. And when I'm working with people, 9 times out of 10, they'll come to me with something and we'll work through it. And I know that that's not really what the issue is. But that moment when somebody realizes for themselves is absolutely great. And that's what it's about. You have to get there in your own time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there's no rush.
What did you do before, before you were ill? What did you do in corporate?
I was a facilities manager within financial services, so it was all about buildings and listening to the staff complain about everything.
Very, very busy role, very busy and stressful.
It was, and I travelled. I spent 2 or 3 days a week every week in London, and the rest of the week in Glasgow. So I split my time between the two. So I was in the red eye from Glasgow to London every Monday morning. So yeah, and I did that for 3-4 years. And it stopped because I got ill, which might be one of the reasons that I got ill, to be fair, was the stress. But I didn't realize how stressed I was and how much that was affecting every other part of my life. Because come, you know, tea time on a Sunday, I would start getting packed up for going away in the Monday morning, early to bed to up, and then I would be late home Tuesday or Wednesday night, and then back into Glasgow office for the rest of the week. In between that, juggling my daughter, who's now grown up, but she, you know, it was making sure my husband was here when I wasn't, and vice versa, because he worked away at times as well. And so it was all, yeah, crazy when I think about it. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's been well worth it.
And now you are the reignited woman. You've reignited yourself. Yeah, wonderful.
And I really want to do that for women out there, in any sort of way I can.
Brilliant. So how do people get a hold of you, Joyce?
Okay, well, they can get my website, which is just www.threignitedwoman.com, or they can email me, and it's joyce@threignitedwoman.com. So
marvelous. That's all very straightforward.
It's
so Joyce Hardi, thank you very much indeed for your time, and let's hope we've inspired some people to maybe start their own business in their 50s.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Elaine. It's been great.
Most welcome.
Cheers.